about this one is we've invited our state representatives to join, and I see that we have a few on the line here. And so just a little bit of background. We've been doing these information sharing kind of business check-ins now since March. This is edition number 12 for us, and actually it's probably going to be our last weekly. As businesses are getting back to business, people are more and more busy, and frankly, so are we, which is the good news. But we're thrilled to have you join us here this morning, and really pleased that our legislators are on the line here, because one of the things we have not done is we haven't heard from the State House. The format is to hear from our municipal leaders first, and then to open it up to our business leaders who are on the line, and to hear what's going on in the business community, and to help each other out to the extent possible. And that's been terrific to catch up with everybody this week, and soon we're looking forward to catching up in person. So let me introduce our 2020 board president, and that's Tony Sapienza, who's on the line here, who's the co-owner of the Blue Shutters Beachside Inn. Tony, wants to say
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thank you, Ken. And I don't know what I'm going to do with my Thursday mornings now without these calls. I'll have to FaceTime Ken every Thursday at 10 o'clock just to get my fix. But seriously, these have been great. I'm really looking forward to today's with some of our elected officials and government officials. But these have been fantastic. I get so much out of them, not just from Ken, but from everybody on these calls who shares their experiences and questions and stuff like that. So, and I've got a couple myself for today, but thank you all, and thank you, Ken. And thank you, by the way, too. I see a couple of board members on here too. I see Karen Ristabin, and there's probably, there's Lisa Bonneville. So thank you to our 2020 board members as well for joining this call. That's it, Ken.
Thank you, Tony, for your incredible work so far this year. It's been a heck of a year for all of us. Just quick introductions to my team. We have been working for the past going on 14 weeks now, virtually, as most of you have been as well. We have Vince Minetti here, who is our promotions manager. Olivia Perez-Odess is our member services director, and Peter Weber will be joining us shortly once he's done with our newsletter, our senior vice president. And so thank you all for your incredible work. We're looking forward to starting to do more in person shortly with our new location on Harbor Loop. Why don't we start then and hear from our legislators as to what's going on in Beacon Hill. And I see Drew, I see you're on. Is that you or Representative Ferrante?
Yeah, that's me.
You want to give us an update as to what's happening there and out of your office?
There's a lot of work being done on economic development right now. There's a bill that's going to be written over the next couple of weeks. I don't really have anything prepared per se for this. I thought Ann-Margaret was going to be here, so I'm going to defer to Representative Hill to give the legislative update.
Can I interrupt and say Ann-Margaret is on another conference call with the opening committee, Mr. Polito, and it's going a little longer than anticipated, so she'll be joining us, we hope, in the next few minutes. But I know Senator Tarr is also on another call, and he'll be joining us momentarily as well.
Terrific.
Even though it says Bruce Tarr, this is Representative Hill.
I was wondering. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
No worries.
You want to go ahead, Brad?
So let me begin by saying thanks for allowing us to come and speak a few minutes and get some feedback from you, which is what I'm hoping we really get out of this meeting today, moving forward. For those of you who have not heard, obviously the state is in dire straits financially right now. Normally we would be actually putting together the state budget, and we haven't even begun that process since COVID-19 started, because we're not exactly sure what revenues we're going to have to be able to put the budget together. Both Ways and Means in the House and in the Senate are waiting patiently for the federal government to pass the next bill that will help states with some financial help, we hope, in terms of the COVID-19. We're being told right now, going into FY 21 that we could have a hole that's as big as $6 billion to $8 billion. We were hoping that when the federal government actually passes the next bill, that a lot of that hole will be filled. But between you and I don't see them coming up with $8 billion to help the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So with that said, what's going to happen is we're going to have to look at going into our rainy day fund, which we have over $3 billion in, which over the last few years, thank God, we filled that rainy day fund, because we would be in even more dire straits without it moving into the next year. For this current fiscal year, we're doing okay. We actually, between the rainy day fund and the reimbursements from the federal government, we're going to get through June 30th, which we already did, with no major problems, no financial issues. But going into next fiscal year, we are going to have some issues for sure. So we're hoping to have a budget, believe it or not, maybe by September or October. We normally have it all in place by June 30th and voted on and signed by the governor. What we're doing in place of a full budget is we're passing 1/12 budgets every month to get us through until we can put together our budget. What's interesting this year is we actually have been voting remotely. We're not even in the State House at this point, at least in the House, because of the amount of legislators that there are and how close our desks are together. The Speaker decided that we would be better off not having people in the chamber and voting from home, which has really changed the way we debate bills. I mean, before we could stand up and question bills. Now we have to, unfortunately, by 10 o'clock each morning, if we want to speak on an issue, we have to let them know about it. We can't debate willy-nilly like we used to, which has been very frustrating for a lot of legislators. So what's been happening is a lot of the bills that have come before us have been non-controversial. We still have major bills that need to be passed in terms of the environment, the transportation bill that you probably have been reading about, whereas the House has done one thing, the Senate has done another. And usually what would happen is a conference committee would be undertaken to try and work out the differences. So we're looking at how we're going to be able to do that moving forward. So very different times up at Beacon Hill, but I think what you need to know is we've been passing bills to try and help our cities and towns to make sure that they can change bylaws without going through the normal process, trying to help our businesses like the restaurant business, being able to get licenses for outdoor dining, alcohol, things of that sort, without going through the usual processes. And I think that's been quite successful. We've been listening to you and trying to understand what we can do to help you in these times. And we've been passing bills on a regular basis to try and do just that. So State House wise, that's about where we're at. And normally we would be done July 31st because we're in the second year of our session. And we're not even sure if we're going to be called back in because, again, normally we would be done on July 31st and then the rest of the year, you know, because of the races happening in September and in November, we would be doing that instead. So we may be called back in to do the budget, and we may be called back in to do some of these controversial bills that I just spoke about moving forward, if we don't get them done by July 31st. And as you know, we only have 3 or 4 weeks left. So I think that's my little short update from Beacon Hill, unless anybody has questions.
Thank you very much for that, Brad. I would say that, you know, take the opportunity to thank you and all our legislators and our governor for doing such an incredible job in getting us to this point. And Massachusetts really is looked at as a leader for the nation with our rates being as low as they are. So, you know, it's difficult on the business community being in phase 2, and we're looking forward to getting into phase 3, but we have to do it safely because we do not want to repeat the lessons that are going on, you know, down south and out west. And it's a credit to you and everyone at Beacon Hill for getting us to this point. Thank you for that.
Well, I'll tell you, we're very concerned because we're hearing from our healthcare personnel that there could be a round 2. And I think, you know, there's been some criticism of the government, and sometimes yes, sometimes no. but we're concerned that we're going to have a round two, and we just can't survive a round two. So I think we've been doing the best we can, keeping people safe. I can tell you the district that I represent, I have Ipswich, I have Raleigh. We're 15 minutes from New Hampshire. They opened up a lot sooner than we did. And some of my businesses in downtown Ipswich are really struggling. I think a couple of probably going to not reopen when everything happens. So we're very concerned about that, and we don't want to have a round two of this. We just don't want it.
Great, thank you.
Ken, may I say one word to
Sure.
Brad?
Sure.
Please, I'm assuming that Bruce will not be speaking this morning. You're representing all of the legislators, Brad.
No, I hope Senator Tarr will be joining us momentarily.
Oh, okay. I wanted to actually say a few words to him on behalf of the town of Manchester.
Okay.
I'll just wait then. I'll wait.
Hold that thought. I don't think Senator Tarr is on the line, and I don't believe that Representative Ferrante has joined us yet. And I think that I see Sal Di Stefano's on. I wonder, Sal, if you want to do a brief update from the city of Gloucester.
Sure. Thank you, Ken. And thank you, Representative Hill, for the update. Appreciate it. My camera is having issues. We just did all security updates, so sorry about that. But hopefully everybody could hear me. But Gloucester is preparing for 4th of July weekend. We just promoted the fact that we're going to have several businesses open, many of which usually don't open during the 4th of July, but with COVID and a prolonged shutdown, about 20 of them are going to be open on Main Street, and Elizabeth has helped promote them through Discover Gloucester, and Ken has as well, the chamber. So we just want the message, though, to go out to folks that whenever possible, business owners, staff, whoever can should utilize I-4C2 parking on Rogers Street, as well as Rogers Street and others, that we can keep the available spaces for customers doing business on Main Street. As those of you who've gone down Main Street saw, several spots have been used for outdoor dining, which has been great and really helpful to businesses. It's challenging. We have limited space. We have a lot of needs, but everybody's working together to try to come up with the best solution. And, we're just really proud of the resiliency of Gloucester businesses. So we're really happy about that, that everybody is working together. And yesterday, we announced that we have a business liaison nurse, Janet Dickinson. And we're going to be sending out her information shortly, but she's available to answer questions for Gloucester businesses around COVID. This is a nurse that's dedicated, that businesses could call on with questions, how to handle it. She's wonderful. She was on our business reopening task force that Ken and I co-chair for the city. So that's really great resource that we're absolutely excited to have. Also on the call, there's a Gloucester company named Gloucester Bio. They're at 11 Dory Road in Blackburn Industrial Park, which many of you know is a former Gloucester engineering building. The CEO came on to our call, and he's willing to offer a 50% discount on hand sanitizer that they manufacture in Gloucester. And Jeff Beeney is the CEO. We're really happy about that announcement, because there's a major concern around all PPE availability, and having the hand sanitizer available for a 50% discount right in our park is a very good thing. So our reopening task force has been fielding numerous calls from businesses and assisting them. And, we're happy to hear that things are going as well as they can right now. We're expecting a lot of visitors this weekend. but we're prepared for it, and we're just happy to announce our small business grant program has been moving forward slowly but surely with awards of $10,000 grants for small businesses. So that's been moving along under the leadership of the mayor. Really happy, and thank you for the cooperation for many of the members on this call. These weekly calls have been helpful. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Tony, Peter, everybody. Olivia, your staff has been wonderful. Thank you for putting things in the newsletter. This has been a great partnership. And I want to thank the other communities on Cape Ann as well. A lot of work behind the scenes and coordinating. But we're just keep moving forward in a positive direction. But that's all I have for now, Ken.
Sal, thank you. That was a great update, and it's been terrific working with you every single day. Let's hear also a little more from Gloucester. If I could put you on the spot, Elizabeth, and if you want to give an update, please, with our visitors.
Good morning and happy 4th of July weekend to everyone. Sal covered a lot of what we're doing together. We just got off the city task force meeting this morning at 8:30. With good news, in spite of the challenges and the time and the struggles that we're going through, many of our lodging partners in Gloucester are happy to be full or almost full for the weekend. So the visitors are coming. Primarily there's in-state visitors, but they are coming from neighboring states that are now allowed to come in without a 14-day quarantine. So there's a lot of good energy. I did put out a big email blast for things to do this weekend. Main Street, yes, in fact, all the retailers are open. Many of the retailers, I think there's 23 of them, are open on 4th of July, the day, which they normally don't. That's happening also in the town of Rockwood, I believe. So it's all good news. We are looking forward to a busy weekend and hope that the visitors will extend and keep coming back because as I understand the lodging folks, they do have a healthy weekend ahead, but there's not a lot of reservations in the foreseeable future. So that challenge continues with, the push and pull of the visitor experience and when we invite them and how we invite them. Thanks.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thanks for all your incredible work. It's such a pleasure to work with you. I see that we have Senator Tarr and Representative Ferrante. Looks like welcome to our conversation. We started out here. These are basically casual information exchanges, and it's terrific to have the three of you on the line today and to get an update from Beacon Hill. We heard from Representative Hill just a few minutes ago, and if Senator Tarr and Representative Ferrante, if you'd like to say a few words, please, as your perspective as to what's going on the Hill. Who'd like to go first?
Good morning, Ken. I'll defer to the representative, and thank you for having us.
Thank you. Ann-Margaret? There you go.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Ken. So I was just on an advisory board meeting for reopening, and we are progressing. There will be announcements coming out from the governor today that will be moving forward with phase 3, part 1 on Monday. There'll also be an order saying that as far as indoor activities, that there'll be guidance that will change from 10 persons to 25 persons. And from, in terms of outdoor gatherings, that will bump up to 100 people per gathering. So I know some people were wondering about functions and when they could start some functions. Outdoors is definitely better than indoors. There's an abundance when we have these calls where, just to talk about the advisory board meetings and reopening and how that works. There's a number of business folks that the governor's office has selected to participate on this board. The House and Senate have monitoring responsibilities as for right now under the emergency declaration. It's the executive branch that has the ability to open and close businesses and to monitor and regulate activities. Having said that, how these meetings are constructed is there's a board of 8 medical professionals that update everybody as to the data and to the benchmarks. And I want to give some credit to the Baker administration, because I think it really says a lot about the people of Massachusetts and the way business, workers, citizens, government have all worked together so that we're still one of, I think, only 3 states that are meeting our objectives right now. As we look across the country, it's a frightening scenario when you look at the rate of increases that some of these states that opened too quickly have. And now they're going through a second shutdown. We're trying to be very deliberate in our process, and I know that it's painful to a lot of folks that have small businesses in terms of that deliberate process, but we're trying hard not to get to that point where we have to incur a second shutdown. And so this morning, the medical board gave a presentation showing that we're on track. We're able to go do things like go from 10 to 25 people indoors to 100 people outdoor in gatherings, and then also to reopen other businesses. One of the ones that surprised me this morning was movie theaters. So it's encouraging that there's ways in which we're starting to get back to some sort of normalcy, although I don't think we'll ever see the return to what we were before COVID, just based on where we're at and what we need in order to have a treatment or a vaccine or what have you. Right now, my staff and I are knee deep in drafting the Economic Development Recovery Bill. And what we're looking at there is, again, how do we deliver assistance to small businesses? Where do we put resources so that we can, which sectors of the economy are growing so that we can put resources into those sectors so that we can create jobs as quickly as possible in order to help alleviate the number of people who are unemployed right now. And so that's the brief of where we are right now in terms of Beacon Hill. We have a deadline of July 31st, of course, to get all of these things done. I think I see Sue Todd over there in one of my little squares. In addition to writing the economic development and recovery bill, we're also, my office is also very much engaged in looking at the early education childcare system. We know that parents have been home. We know that right now children are at home, and quite honestly, workers cannot return to the workforce if they don't have adequate childcare, and that's a difficult piece of the puzzle, as Sue knows, to put back together, because for so long our childcare system has relied on a per pupil or per child reimbursement. And in some areas, whether it's because we have multi-generational living and we have children, parents, and grandparents all living together, and it's a risk for the child to go to childcare or preschool because there's an elder in the house that they may bring COVID back to. For various reasons, we're not at maximum capacity, even if childcare is available to every family. We're at about 30% capacity. And so there's a major subsidization that would have to occur in order to keep these facilities open. And the largest problem with that, and Brad Hill, Representative Hill probably already mentioned this and alluded to this, is we're looking at about an $8 billion deficit in terms of this fiscal year. And so there are a lot of areas where we would like to help. We need to help. We need to do the best that we can to get the economy moving. But our hands are somewhat tied with the resources we have. Having said that, to put $8 billion deficit into perspective, during Brad, Bruce, and I were all around for the 08 and 2010 economic downturns. In those fiscal years, we were only looking at a $5 billion deficit, and the federal government came in to cover about 2.5 of that. Right now, we're looking down the barrel of $8 billion, and there's been no guidance from the federal government in terms of any assistance that we may be able to see. So is it a bleak picture? Absolutely. Are we working our hardest to try to get the help that we need here on Cape Ann? Absolutely. Are we very proud of the businesses for stepping up and for residents for stepping up to follow the medical guidance so we can go through this reopening process? Absolutely. Do I wish every night that I go to bed and every morning that I wake up that I had a magic wand to fix all of this? Absolutely. But unfortunately, the wand doesn't exist. So, we're doing our best to work with everybody to come up with the solutions that we can.
Well, thank you very much, Ann-Margaret. Well said. And as we were saying earlier to Representative Hill, we're so appreciative of what you all do for us from Beacon Hill. We've got our heads down, just trying to keep our businesses going, and we just know that you're out there, working on our behalf every day. And we're proud. The state of Massachusetts is proud as an example for the nation, and it's largely a tribute to you three and our governor as to where we are today. So we thank you for all of your hard work from Beacon Hill. I will also say, childcare is a huge issue for our businesses. The other one that's really hurting us right now with our seasonal summer businesses is the $600 a week federal subsidy on unemployment. We have a lot of businesses that can't open, at least not to their desired capacity, because they can't get staff. And so that's been really tricky for us. Thank you for that. So Senator Tarr, would you like to say a few words? I am going to try to unmute you. Maybe you need to try to unmute you. I see that you're there, but this is... I'm not able to unmute you. This is a first. Oh, wait a second. There you are.
How's that?
That's awesome. Welcome back.
So I would say that over the years, many people have tried to mute me. It's very rarely successful. But I would pick up where Ann-Margaret left off and to say that it's hard to fully express the amount of appreciation we have for the resiliency that businesses are showing and for the sacrifice and the hardships that you're enduring. Because we know a lot of the good health benefits that we're seeing for our state that we're very proud of come at the expense of a lot of sacrifice and hardship for people in business that have had to do something that is completely counterintuitive, which is either close the doors or restrict operations. And so it's not lost on the three of us how much that has hurt. And we're hoping that we'll be able to accelerate things as quickly as we can. But I think you can see in other parts of the country what happens when you try to accelerate more quickly than public health would dictate. So we do appreciate everything everybody's doing. We know it's hard. We certainly sympathize and just know that we're looking for every opportunity to help you on Beacon Hill. And, as Ann-Margaret mentioned, we do have a deadline of July 31st for formal sessions. It is likely that we will need to come back at least once after that deadline to be able to do the state budget. And the reason for that is that we cannot build a budget right now because we don't know what the federal government's going to do. And that will be an integral part of our budgeting process. And we also don't know the effect of delaying the tax deadline to July 15th. So, which is interesting because that straddles the 2 fiscal years. So we're trying to deal with a lot of moving pieces, and hopefully we're going to see a very robust recovery. Now, the numbers nationally today point in that direction, but a lot of the discussion on Beacon Hill is about what the shape of a recovery looks like. Is it a V? Is it a U? Is it a W? Is it a check mark? We just don't know that. And so we're trying to work through that. A lot of our time has been spent, I would suggest for the three of us, in helping people with unemployment insurance claims and helping people with PPP, the Payroll Protection Plan, to try to get assistance out. Even though many of those things are federal, we are often the conduit for access. And so we're trying to help people. But the legislative pace is picking up on Beacon Hill because of the looming July 31st deadline. And so, for instance, today in the Senate, we are going to take up the final version of the bill for elections in the fall to be able to allow more use of absentee voting and to be able to use make more use of early voting so that we can make sure that people feel comfortable and are safe when they come out to vote. We also have two bills today that the House has already done. One is a general obligation bond bill, which is money that is borrowed for different capital projects. And the second is a supplemental appropriation bill to pay for things related to COVID-19 that we think the federal government will reimburse us for. So there are some major bills on the docket for us today. And another bill that we are working on very steadfastly has to do with the reform of our policing systems and our and to deal with racial equality. And I will make a prediction that you will see a bill on that front emerge fairly quickly in the legislative process. And I know it's important to everyone. The House has a task force working on that. The Senate does as well. It's 6 members. I am one of them. And so that's an important issue that has risen to the top of the priority list. So I think you'll see something on that as well. We are eagerly anticipating the work product of Ann-Margaret's efforts with regard to the economic development bill. We think that's going to be a major opportunity to be able to respond to the things that we need to do to help people in business, particularly small business. And I would predict similarly that we will see a version of that bill get to the governor's desk as well. So there's a little bit of information. I'm not going to monopolize the conversation, so I will stop there. And Ken, if you would like to mute me, feel free, because very rarely does anyone get that experience.
Well, thank you so much, Senator Tarr. That was terrific. Thank you, all three of you, for your tremendous work in getting us to this point. I know that Lisa Bonneville had I think a comment that she'd like to make for you, Bruce.
Hi, Bruce. I wanted to thank you for acknowledging the town of Manchester by the Sea on the floor of the Senate on their 375th anniversary date of June 18th. We're having a difficult time celebrating this year and gathering, but we're 375 years old nonetheless. Thank you very much, Bruce.
And I'll tell you, you guys don't look a day over 100, Lisa. So I was happy to do it, and I would also point out that Representative Hill was in the chamber for that as well. And we really wanted to find a way to do something because we know on that day you had planned a whole day-long celebration. So we figured at least if we do something special, maybe people could tune in. And it certainly didn't replace what you wanted to do, but we wanted to make sure the day got properly marked. So thanks, Lisa. It was great to do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Great comment. Would anybody else like to ask our legislators any other questions or make any comments while we have them here on the line? Tony?
Yeah, I have a question. And the question is really about, Tony Sapienza, I'm president of the Chamber's board and also one of the co-owners of the Blue Shutters Beachside Inn. And the question I have is about state-to-state cooperation and what kind of conversations are happening across states. And specifically, we've got guests who want to come from Vermont. And currently, the way I understand it, we're as Essex County is kind of restricted as a 14-day quarantine for residents of Vermont who travel to Essex County. And I don't know if, I think it's based on the number of cases per million or something like that, but I'm just wondering if there are conversations across state lines to try to open up some avenues for travel among guests, either from Massachusetts there or from those states here. So I have a specific question about Vermont, though.
So it's a great question, and we thank you for asking it. And there is a lot of communication happening between the states. And in fact, as a result of a lot of the good work that's been done in the New England states, the governor has modified the guidance. And there are 7 states for which it is not being requested that people quarantine for those 14 days. And I would defer to my colleagues, but I believe that Vermont is one of them because all of the New England states were. And this is a fairly recent development. But yes, the states have been communicating with each other, and the governor made that pronouncement just a short time ago.
Yeah, I would just concur that, yes, it's 5 New England states plus New York and I believe New Jersey. And so we accept that the New England states and New York and New Jersey have been working with us in instituting the same regulations that we have. And when you look at their numbers and their infection rate, just so you know how proud we are of everybody in Massachusetts. The data showed this morning that Massachusetts has the lowest infection rate of all 50 states. And so we're very protective of that. The goal is to be under 3%. We're under 2%. I think we're the only state that's under 2%. And so because there's been a regional approach to this, the governor and his medical board feels comfortable with visitors coming from the other New England states. Once you get beyond that, it's a very different picture if you watch nightly news and you see, how many states are growing in their group.
Yeah.
Tony,
Yes.
if I could just read the press conference, it said effective July 1st, yesterday, he's expecting that any residents returning home or any visitors are instructed to self-quarantine for 14 days, but the guidance does not apply to travelers from Rhode Island, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, New York, or New Jersey, and additionally, workers designated by the federal government as essential critical infrastructure workers are also exempt. So Vermont is right in the middle, and conversations are happening daily with other governors in the New England states.
Yeah, I was aware of that. Actually, Elizabeth shared that information with us a couple of days ago, and that was encouraging. I just don't know that Vermont is reciprocating. It sounds like they still have Essex County on sort of the hot zone list, and if you visit Essex County from Vermont, you go back, then you have to quarantine in Vermont, which is prohibitive for a lot of people who have to go back to work and stuff like that. So it's not so much a Massachusetts thing. I think we're doing a fantastic job. That's why I'm surprised, actually, that we're in this sort of off limits, area. But I think Vermont is kind of, their restrictions are kind of, holding up the works for us.
Actually, I think Maine is also having some issues with Massachusetts residents, and they're asking for self-quarantine as well.
Yeah. So I guess my question was, the question is there any sort of conversations to help those states kind of ease their restrictions on us? That's the part that's, I think, interfering with our business.
We can forward that question to the administration and get an answer for you.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or comments for our legislators?
I had a question about testing. I know it's still, aren't we supposed to be able to do testing? It still seems like there's some restrictions around being able to be tested. So, CVS or some of the sites still are saying you don't qualify to be tested. Is that the case, or is it, that you've been a protest or things like that? So what are the restrictions still around testing? I thought we were supposed to all be able to be tested now.
So if I can start with that one. On testing right now, there are still limited amounts of tests. And there are still backlogs for testing. For example, Quest Diagnostic, it has a backlog of about 60,000 tests. And so there are still restrictions on who can be tested. So for example, this has happened to me, I think 3 times now. If you come into contact with somebody who has COVID, you reach out to your primary care physician your primary care physician will ask a number of questions as to the duration of the contact, how close the contact was, and if you're symptomatic. They will then decide whether or not you require testing. The other is the person who tested positive will talk to their primary care physician, who will then talk to the Department of Public Health, who will then talk to your Board of Health, and then they will call you and tell you that you were in close proximity to somebody who had COVID and you require testing. And so right now, because there are limited tests available and because there's a backlog of people who still require testing, they still have a priority for people who are most likely to have been infected. And so that still exists. It's not likely. I know a lot of people and pundits talk about universal testing. The cost to that is astounding. I think it's something like $1 billion a month if everybody in Massachusetts were to be tested regularly. And the important thing to know about test is even when you're on that priority because you've come into contact with somebody who does have COVID, they usually make you wait 5 days to see if you become symptomatic during that time period, because the test will only give you a snapshot of that one moment in time when you're tested. And so you could be tested a day after having been exposed to somebody with COVID. It may not show up, and then you would have to be tested 5 days later when your symptoms do show. So there's a lot of, and I know Chris Bolzan's on the phone, on the line, the Zoom call, and GMGI's done a lot of work around testing and how it happens and when it happens. But again, it's not only getting the test, it's getting tested at that point in time where the virus is going to show up in the test. And so that's what makes testing very tricky.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Thank you all. And again, for our legislators for joining us here this morning. We know how busy you are, and it's really wonderful for you to take the time to be with us. So why don't we open it up and to hear from our businesses and how you all are doing as we are into phase 2 and breaking news, phase 3 starts on Monday, if I recall correctly from your remarks, Ann-Margaret. That's big news for us. We've been wondering on the date, so that'll be huge. Anybody like to go first? Anyone?
I got mine.
Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, thank you to our wonderful delegation. I feel very blessed. I've been a child advocate for 40 years, and I've never run up against anybody else that feels as fortunate as I in terms of our representation. So thank you for that. We are in the process of reopening. The guidance that we have started out with 32 pages of things that we must have in place, and it grows by the day and changes by the day. It's so much uncertainty. We are basically reopening for July and August at this point, and it's a slow reopening. We can only have 50% of our capacity for children enrolled, but we are having to use private funds and are fortunate that we have some to staff up. The guidance from EEC is that you have 10 children and 1 staff. However, I've asked the difficult question of how does that teacher who is wearing a mask all day long take a break for kind of important things like using the restroom? And there is no answer. That's our problem. And so we will actually have 3 staff in every one of our classrooms because they have to be self-contained units. The children can't leave that space. Nobody else can go into that space. Parents can't come on site. We will be meeting their children outside the door. and screening them and then escorting them to their classrooms. So it's fairly onerous and, but I got to tell you, I have not in all my career been as proud of my staff as I am right now. They are just pulling out all the stops. So we're good to go on July 20th.
Thank you, Sue. Terrific update, and ditto that on the staff. It's an amazing time, and everyone is rising to the challenge.
Absolutely.
I'm curious, as we are about to open our new location, Welcome Center, and staff offices on Harbor Loop, should be this month, fingers crossed, and it's looking amazing. We're looking forward to having all of you in there. I'm curious, Michael, if you'd like to give us an update as to what's happening on the other side of Harbor Loop.
Yeah, I would. Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that opportunity, and thank you to the delegation for all your hard work and everything that you've done to get us to this point. Sue actually summed up a lot of our concerns as well. We have a very unwieldy place here at Maritime Gloucester that has about 6 different business entities that open up over 4 different phases with different guidelines for each of them. So I am actually scrambling with the news that Ann-Margaret just gave us about the phase 3 opening, because the museum portion of our site was phase 3. So that's good news that we have some concrete details now, and we'll have to plan off from that to see if quite frankly, if that's going to be something that we can take advantage of now, or have to wait for a future, higher capacity that will allow us to open up and be sustainable. But it is good to see that we're moving in the right direction. I know we're going to try to do everything we can to both support the community and provide some much needed uplift to this recovery process from a cultural standpoint. So we're looking forward to that, and be happy to talk with anyone about what we're trying to do. A lot of decisions will be made in the next week and a half, and hopefully we can share that with all of you as that comes out. Reach out to us, and we're willing to work with anyone. So thank you so much for everything that everyone is doing, from the city, from Discover Gloucester and the chamber, and it's just been wonderful to see the whole city get together and support each other on calls like this. And the region, I shouldn't limit it to the city. The region's been fantastic and very supportive of what we're trying to do. So thank you all. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Michael, and we can't wait to have your doors open again. And any inside information on Schooner Festival? Are you still looking at that?
The question on everyone's mind. Insider information will be shared. We created 4 different versions of how to run a Schooner Festival in 4 different phases. Getting sign-offs for that from the city, getting what we needed to put together in place to have that plan enacted has proved to be a little difficult. We're taking a pause because of the news from the South and the West. We're concerned about how this positions our brand, public safety, putting on an event that encourages people to get together is not wise right now. And so we're shifting, we're checking out some of the shifts to offer other things that don't encourage large groups of people. And we're working that process right now, but no definitive statement right now, Ken. Thanks for the try.
You are being recorded, so well, thank you, Michael. Well said. Who else? Anybody else?
Can I just say one more thing? Our business at the Blue Shutters has been very encouragingly, we've seen a good uptick in reservations. Okay, a lot of cancellations, but now we're seeing a lot of reservations, and I think that's a tribute to what we've done as a state and what we've done as a community. I mean, they wouldn't be coming to us if they didn't feel comfortable. And, you know, a credit to all of Massachusetts and our government leaders for, you know, putting us in a good position right now. Hopefully it stays that way. But also, as a business owner, I wouldn't feel comfortable welcoming businesses back if we didn't have, you know, the right sort of protocols and guidelines in place. And, you know, kudos to, you know, for the governor right on down to, for us, City of Gloucester, for helping us, you know, through that whole process. So if, you know, as our business builds back up, it's because of what you all done to, you know, put us in that position. Thank you all.
Thank you, Tony. Chris, did you want to, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead with Chris.
I'll give a quick update from GMGI. I want to echo everyone's sentiments and thanks to the delegation for their amazing support through all of this. So we're so incredibly grateful and the great contact we've had with all of you. So thank you for that, especially Ann-Margaret. As you guys may see, there's more cars in the parking lot at 417 Main Street lately. The science team has slowly been returning to the lab. A lot happened while working remotely. Publications were submitted and grants were applied for. A lot of data analysis was done, but we needed to get everybody back into the lab working. So they've got a great rotating basis. It's going on about 7 days a week to make sure everybody's safely distanced and feeling comfortable in the environment. So that's going well. Most of us who can continue to work remotely are doing so just to make sure there's plenty of room for our scientists in the lab. Thanks to everyone on this call who's been really helping us to continue to get the word out about the Academy. We're continuing to recruit, attract students, and fill a class for the class of 2021. Our plan, we firmed up yesterday, we are going to open for that new class on September 8th. And we've been working through the scenario planning for how that looks in the space that we have so that we can do so safely with current guidelines. We know that could be upset by anything that can happen with this virus, but as of now, we are seating a class who will begin on September 8th. And the class of 2020 is going to graduate on September 3rd. So they should have graduated already, but because internships were stalled and delayed and had to be reimagined, we pushed that date out, and we're going to hold an outdoor graduation for them in person on September 3rd. And they're all doing really well. We've been excited to see 3 of them are working in our new neighbor, Life Mine, upstairs from us at 417 Main Street. So that was a great indication of the expansion of the science community, one of our goals happening in Gloucester. And it's been kind of nice to see the students meeting up with alumni, safely distanced outside on the harbor at the picnic tables. And it's just been a really, really encouraging sign as things begin to open up and see our students in action. One of the things we did during the lockdown was offer a GMGI Science Hour, bringing scientists in our network offering webinars on Thursday evenings. I know many of you have attended some of them, and I didn't know if everyone here has heard about them, but we're going to have our last Science Hour talk next Thursday, September 9th. And we're going to reopen it again in the fall. But our final Science Hour talk, we've been very fortunate to have a scientist in our network, Martin Chalfie, who was a 2008 Nobel Prize winner. So he is going to cap it off. I'll put in the chat the invitation to register for the talk if anyone is interested in joining in and seeing what this is all about. It's about 30 minutes of scientific information, webinar format, and then it's opened up to Q&A. We've had hundreds of people attending these talks, so it's been a really fun way to interact with our community, to share science, give people a way to engage in this strange remote working environment we're all living in. Martin's a great speaker. We're really fortunate to have him in our mix. He was the person who identified the green fluorescent protein in jellyfish that causes luminescence, and it's been able to be used as a biological marker that has really changed the game with regards to genetics and cell biology, neurobiology. It's had a very big impact on cancer, Alzheimer's, and other diseases. So it should be a really great talk, and he does a good job of making it accessible even for the non-scientists. So if anyone would love to participate, I'll share the registration link in the chat here. But you know, you can always feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. And again, we're still looking for more students for the class of 2020. And if anyone has any questions on that front, let us know. We are in the process of launching a new website. So if you go to the website and you have some hiccups, you know, you can always email me.
Thank you, Chris. You didn't have much to say. That was a great update. Thank you so much. Elizabeth, did you want to say something else?
I just wanted to do a shout out to the Harbor Master, TJ, and his gang. The Harbor Master building is 95% complete. TJ and Chad and the Shellfish folks are in the building. The 42 moorings that are rentable in the harbor have been sold out over the last 2 weeks. So kudos to them. You know, it's nice to have incoming boating visitors here, whether they're locals or visitors, but they come and they visit and they stay overnight. And so we have to be sure that we, you know, give a shout out to what they're doing. It's an industry that certainly helps the tourism economy, and TJ's done a terrific job, and Joe Cahill and the city have done a terrific job in making sure that that building looks wonderful. And it's now going to offer a welcome center where there'll be showers and available community room and a little visitor center. And so that is terrific for us to be able to welcome the boating industry to Gloucester. So just wanted to make a note on that.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And as you and I are both boaters, we could especially appreciate that. That's a great update. Thank you. Maria. Hi.
Thanks. Hi, good morning. Maria Nigro Di Stefano, Northeast Regional Director for the Massachusetts Office of Business Development. Thank you, everyone. And just wanted to briefly tell you about one thing. That there is, and I know Mechelle Brown is on this call too, and she and I, she reached out to me and said that there were 3 businesses in Rockport that were really struggling because English is not their first language. And in fact, in one instance, they barely could speak English. So just want to put it out there for you and any colleagues, any other business folk, any other retailers or restaurants, or really anyone that has applied or was going to apply for an SBA loan. There is assistance, there are translation services, and I apologize if the legislators told you this already this morning. I came onto the call late. But you know, for someone like me who's a child of immigrants and English is not my first language, this is a program that really resonates with me. And so it's through the Massachusetts Growth Capital Corporation, which is a quasi-governmental partner of the state. So I'm gonna, in the chat, and Ken is great, always about sort of boiling everything down and sending it back to you. So I'll quickly put my information in the chat, and I know he'll send this out for you as well. But if anyone is struggling, and I think there's over 50 languages, so please reach out to me and I'll get you someone that can help. Thanks.
Awesome. And thank you very much, Maria.
And if I can just quickly say, Maria, thank you so very much. I have heard from at least one of them that was so grateful, and they were able to get the funding and support that they needed. So thank you so very much.
And thank you for letting me know, Mechelle. I mean, just reach out, and sometimes the answer is, you know, Ken will tell you the same thing, Mechelle, Sal, anyone that is representing businesses. Sometimes the answer is no, or sometimes the answer is we don't know, but at least ask and let us try to figure something out for you.
Awesome, thank you both. Would anybody else like to share? Caitlin, what's happening?
Hi, Caitlin Sweetland from Miss Wood Events at Endicott College. We have been doing a lot this quarantine, trying to figure out new ways to get people onto our property in a safe and social distance manner. This month we actually have our what is supposed to be our Concours d'Elegance. Unfortunately will not be taking place in person, but we do have a tour that will be on Saturday the 18th, going up the coast and back down, just so that people get a chance to still see some of those nice antique cars. And then from the 19th until the following weekend, they are actually doing a virtual concours show. So it will be still the cars will get judged, and there will be winners at the end, but it will all be through photos. And if you want to tune into that, it's going to be on the Concours Facebook and Instagram pages and the Mistlewood ones as well. So that's just an update for the car show.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. I saw there's an event coming up there at Mistlewood. Was it North Shore Chamber doing an event there? Do you know?
They are doing a small breakfast, kind of a hybrid meeting. There are going to be some people in person sitting at our tables. We do have now, thankfully, to our physical plant department, we have a perfect floor plan for social distancing and the tables to be spread out so that the people that do come feel comfortable being there, as well as signage will be put up. But it will, hopefully it's a good turnout. And if anybody else is interested in doing something similar, please reach out to us. We'd love to have you on our property in the safe manner that we're trying to get out there.
Awesome, thank you. Well, especially with phase 3, should be able to do that safely.
Fingers crossed.
If there's nothing else urgent, I would say thank you very much for your support, for your participation over the last 12 weeks in doing these weekly. It's been terrific seeing you every week. We're going to drop back to probably once a month or maybe once a quarter, depending on how the times go. But we've so enjoyed having you be part of this, and we're looking forward to seeing you in person very soon. Wishing you all a wonderful 4th of July. Enjoy. Take care.